Okay, James, are you ready for more trades? Are you ready for more
trades, buddy.
fake trades? Okay, so we're not going to talk about the mechanics of fake trades and who goes in, who goes out in super detail on this one. But the Knicks and the Jazz have been reportedly in conversations over Donovan Mitchell trade. This is no surprise. Knicks have been coveting Mitchell for ages. In our last podcast, we talked about Donovan Mitchell going to the Knicks, whether or not we think they should do it, what a deal would look like. If you want to find out more about that, go check out episode 31. Okay. But I wanted to ask James and myself, what are some Donovan Mitchell trade destinations that you like that aren't the Knicks? Because right now, no deal has happened. Other teams can still swoop in at the end of the day and grab him. And I actually think the Knicks aren't a great destination for him because I think he's the final piece to a championship puzzle, not the first piece to a championship puzzle, which he would be for the Knicks. And so that's kind of how I view him. So, James, what's a team that you like to maybe make a late swoop for Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, so I kind of have two answers. The Mavericks to me makes a lot of sense using your logic of like he should be the last piece, right?
Yeah.
Him and Luca, bar none, one of the most dynamic offensive pairings in the league. I think they'd be a serious threat next year if they did land him. But the Mavericks don't really have like a great opportunity to do it, right? They don't really have a great package. They're light on draft capital and they don't have any good young players really.
So the Mavericks are interesting because they have a pick going to the. So there's a lot of teams where if they amend protections on picks, they can open up a bunch. Like
Yeah.
one of the reasons why these rolling picks actually kind of suck is because if they don't convey, you're now knocking out like years, like many years of tradable picks because you can't trade a pick that might potentially end up conveying.
Yeah.
So if they were to amend an outgoing 2023 pick, I believe they could then start throwing a bunch of picks in. But probably still not enough.
Knicks own that pick, so why like how does that work?
Well, the Knicks would have to agree. They'd be like, "Here's an unprotected pick," so like you just get it guaranteed. Now,
my point is this though: if the Knicks want Mitchell, why would they agree to that, right?
That is true. But at the same time, if the Knicks aren't getting him, getting an unprotected pick from the Mavericks isn't the worst thing in the world.
That's true. So it depends whether they actually want him or how badly they actually want him. Yeah.
Are they willing to muck it up for another team?
Right. Yeah. But then another destination I like is the Hornets. The Hornets do have a pretty compelling offer to make, and I don't hate the idea of forming one of the best backcourts in the league if I'm the Hornets. And I especially like the dynamic between like LaMelo, who is a playmaker, and Mitchell, who's more of a pure scorer. Like now the Hornets can really attack you in two very unique ways. Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense too. Only hesitancy I have there is that I know that Mitchell is said to pine for a bigger market, so he's just jumping from small market to small market, but maybe he doesn't care about that as much as the rumors suggest,
Also, I feel like playing with LaMelo makes you a happy man if you're a scorer.
Sorry, just to build on that point, that it's pretty marketable, right? The Hornets are like just a kind of a cool brand, and everybody loves those jerseys and everything. Like if they were like, the most exciting backcourt driven team in the league, and Mitchell's getting mad buckets on the back of LaMelo, you're right. It's like that could defy market size,
Yeah. I think they become a really cool team especially with all the '90s nostalgia. Shout out to your hat. All the '90s nostalgia coming back. Like the Hornets, if I remember correctly, like were like a popular kind of like '90s team in a sense, right?
Big time. I remember being like 8-9 years old, whatever, and they were one of the first teams that I was like conscious of. I feel like just because, again, I just think it's the branding, man. Like that teal is so sweet.
Yeah.
I got a Muggsy Bogues jersey for my last birthday. I love it. Yeah, they're just cool. The Hornets is a cool team name, just they're never good. That's kind of the only issue with them, right?
Okay. So I like those teams. Hornets also have an outgoing 2023 pick. They might have to amend that as well if they were to do it. But I think they have more interesting young talent, like a guy like Terry Rozier could go back, who's also like a pretty good player. And if the Jazz want to reroute him, they could probably get a package for him. Here are a few teams though that like have all of their picks, and I want you to tell me, and all of their picks and picks, right? Like not just like all of their own picks, but and picks from other teams. And those are the sweet ones. And I think the first one would be a interesting fit, and I would love the Raptors.
Yeah, I like it. It depends what they're giving up.
But if it's just picks, right? The Jazz appear like they want picks.
Well, no, hold on now. The Raptors don't have a ideal contract matching situation. They can't really give up like just picks, right?
Okay.
Like it would have to either be, if you wanted to be as pick focused as possible to keep the Raptors as strong as possible, I think it would have to be Gary Trent Jr. and change. Like Gary Trent Jr., Kem Birch, and another contract, a bunch of picks. But yeah, so that works for me. Yeah.
Okay. Pelicans have all of their picks plus future Lakers and Bucks picks / swaps. Like they could, in terms of a pick focused one, they could give not their own picks that are going to be valuable potentially with, older aging Laker and Bucks teams. I think that could be a pretty compelling offer. They did just extend, I think, McCollum, and they're kind of redundant players.
They are.
But if you could get him and then figure out a way to get the fuck rid of CJ McCollum.
Yeah, and right. That's the only way for me. If I'm the Pelicans, I kind of only want to do it, I think, if I'm rerouting McCollum, because that, man, I don't know. At a certain point, defense has to matter, right? Like if your starting lineup is Jonas, Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ, and Mitchell. Now, Brandon Ingram is your defensive anchor, and there are a couple of problems with that. First of all, he's a good defender, but he's not a defensive anchor. And second of all, he's also your probably third best offensive player with Mitchell. And you
maybe fourth.
Behind who?
McCollum. I'm not saying
Ingram's better than McCollum. Come on.
McCollum's a real playmaker, right? Like he's a real primary ball handler if you need him to be.
That's true. That's true.
But
in any event, you know what I'm saying though? Like Ingram's gonna have to contribute on offense. He's not Draymond. He's not, whoever else. And like, to me, like I would just rather find a way to get Herb Jones in that starting lineup because like it's just better floor balance, but if they are getting rid of McCollum, then Mitchell makes great sense for them.
Would you do Ingram?
No, I don't think so. Just because he's a two-way player and that McCollum Mitchell backcourt is just so brutal on defense, man.
Yeah. No,
especially with Jonas in the middle, right?
Yeah, and also Ingram, even if I don't think he's a good defender, but he's got positional size, which means you can at least he can make a defensive impact on possessions, even if he's not a good defender, in a way that like Mitchell usually doesn't, or McCollum literally can't. Pelicans would be interesting, but I do agree. It's the McCollum issue is that like they went and they got him. It's like if they'd fucking know Donovan Mitchell was going to be available, would they have went for CJ McCollum?
Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. The final one, and the one that like I like the most, but also don't particularly love for one reason, the Grizzlies. They would be building a small backcourt. They'd probably have to give up someone like Desmond Bane, but a Ja Morant, Donovan Mitchell backcourt. You talk about marketability in Charlotte. Oh my God. Whoop that trick would be just, it might become the national anthem. If you have Ja Morant and Donovan Mitchell back there, because I think Donovan Mitchell playing off of someone like Ja Morant could take his offensive game to like another level.
Yep.
They own all of their picks plus a Golden State Warriors pick. If you're the Grizzlies, especially with the Triple J injury, right? Do you think that this is a move that they should really be considering?
The Triple J injury makes everything that they could consider kind of interesting because like this upcoming season is probably a gap year unless they do something like trade for Donovan Mitchell, So yeah. I don't know, man. I do like that fit between Morant and Desmond Bane, right? It's a nice backcourt, but at the same time, they are eventually going to need like a secondary creator, right? Like Ja Morant well, just no man can carry an offense on his own. So there definitely is some sense. There definitely is some sense in it. I could just kind of go either way on the Grizzlies, I think.
So my feeling is this, is that no one's going to want Jaren Jackson Jr. in a trade just because of the injury issues, right? So you get to keep him. He's going to be out 6 months. Maybe he comes back and he doesn't have injury problems going forward. Maybe he stays healthy for that season. And he is an elite defensive big whose offensive game has like kind of actually weirdly deteriorated. 3-point shot has abandoned him. He's not much of a passer, but his defense has become pretty special. So, you have him as your superstar defensive anchor, and you have a backcourt of Morant and Mitchell. And you just fill the rest of it out with like, do we need more defense right now, or do we need more shooting right now? And I feel like, especially at his age and their ages, it's like that gives you a core for another 5-6 years that conceivably, depending on health, could compete for titles. Like, why? To me, they make the most sense just on that. Like, this is a team that's ready to compete. They finished with the second best record in the West. Are the Warriors going to be better this regular season? I don't know. Like they were okay being the 3 seed, right? They have older players. Maybe they take it off. The Suns, I don't think anyone expects them to win 64 games again. They were just so good in the clutch. Regression monster. Chris Paul might get a little bit older. Who knows? Maybe Booker and Ayton take jumps. But like the 1 seed is there for the taking. And without Jaren Jackson Jr. for like half a season, it gets a lot harder. It's like at a certain point, you don't just collecting assets to not use them is stupid. They have the assets. They're right on the cusp. They're a young team that can go get a young kind of third team all NBA caliber player to push them over the top. Like, to me, it's a home run, and they should be the team that's like linked to him most because it makes the most sense for them.
You know what, man? You sold me, to be honest with you. That's a good sell. You're right. Let's do it.
All right. Donovan Mitchell, Memphis Grizzlies.
Pack your bags. You're going to Memphis.
Hey, man, he wants a big market, big barbecue market, right? You never said what type of big market you wanted. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's get out of the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes. He's just going to end up on the Knicks, and it's just going to be for an insane
There's
package.
almost no question.
It's so sad. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the Knicks. I don't feel bad for the Jazz. They're just going to be like, man, we have all these picks are great, man. They're going to be drafting Bronny James. Okay.